Objection, Your Honor. Well, not that type of objection, but as a sales rep, you are going to get objections. People are going to say things that may seem to be collapsing your deal. How do you prepare for them? How could you identify them or to look out like way in advance before those events happen that could be catastrophic for your deal? It's called identifying triggers. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about that and give you some tips and some advice on how you can do it effectively. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast on TSE TV here on YouTube. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have Ernest Owasu. Now, Ernest comes to us. He's a senior business, make sure I get this right, senior director of business development at 6 Cents. Ernest also played professional football, played for the Vikings, and he played for the Buccaneers. I'm a South Florida person, so I like the Dolphins. We didn't agree too much on that part, but still yet we had a good conversation. They're still a Florida team, and we're excited for them. But Ernest is going to talk about his experience. He's going to give us some insight, some of the things he learned, but also not only that from his NFL years, but particularly how we can identify objections by identifying triggers. If we can know the triggers, that can help us overcome these objections that may be catastrophic for our deals. We start off the conversation learning about Ernest's role. We also talk football a little bit, and he may or may not give me some advice on my fantasy football picks. Let's go ahead and dive into the episode. Welcome to the show, Ernest.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm super excited. I was bragging about you in the teaser because there's a lot of questions I have for you. Half of them are going to be about sales. The other half are going to be about football.
Well, I'm excited for it. Love to hear it.
Before we dive into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do right now?
Sure. So my name is Ernest Owasu. I lead our sales development efforts here at 6 Cents. 6 Cents is basically an account-based orchestration platform that helps companies identify when a company is in market for their solutions, so they can prioritize them and ultimately engage with them in a meaningful way. As mentioned, I lead their SDR, BDR team there, and it's been awesome. Been there for about a year and a half or so, and I guess if you want to say I'm a prospecting aficionado. I love all things pipeline generation, and my team has a lot of fun doing it. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
That's awesome, man. Well, congratulations on that. I mean, I feel there's it says a lot to an individual. Obviously, in the role where you're leading a team, team's happy and everybody's succeeding. Something you're doing right. So hopefully, you can share some of that with us and rub off some of that goodness with us as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's been awesome, and obviously with everything going on, things are challenging here and there.
Yeah.
But the success we've had on our team, kind of our overall morale has been super positive over the past couple months. So yeah, definitely more than happy to share what it's like.
All right. So we're going to start off with a very, very important question. So you played for Vikings, and
Yes.
then you played for Bucks.
The Buccaneers, correct.
So
Correct.
I'm in Florida, so Buccaneers are not my team. I'm Dolphins, and hopefully someday we'll
I'm
do
sorry.
something. But Brady, I have my friend Reggie. He's a big fan. He's a Brady fan, he says. So wherever Brady's at. So he was a New England fan forever, but now he is in Florida as well. But now he's going to be a Buccaneer fan. So tell me, what do you think about that whole thing? Brady going to the Bucks.
I'm super excited for it. The Bucks have been an organization since we won the Super Bowl back in, I think, it was since 2001, I guess, almost 20 years now. Just always been on the cusp of going to the playoffs, not quite there. Never really been a wild card, and we just need that quarterback to come in there and just own it and make sure we can get things going. So I think Brady is going to be awesome. He's the GOAT for a reason, and not to mention the fact that he brought in some great talent, if you want to say that. So definitely excited to see what's going to happen for the season.
I know, right? And so COVID, I hope everything can work out with that there. So anyways, when I start doing my fantasy football draft, I'm just going to call you up and have you give me some help. Ernest, I'm working on my life. Come on.
I'll give you some insiders, definitely.
Sweet, man. Well, speaking about insider, we're going to talk today about recognizing the intent, the true buyer intent. So I want you to define that for me before we go into it. Recognizing true intent signals, I should say. and that how that can help us overcome objection. But I want to clarify some of those things. Intent signal, how would you define that part?
Sure. So an intent signal is basically some kind of interaction, a digital interaction from a prospective company or even one person. That's usually a leading indicator that they do want to have a conversation with you. In most cases, depending on kind of how you can see it, you can kind of use it as a gauge of whether or not the company is ready to buy from you. But at the very least, when you think about intent, it's someone showing some kind of interest in either you, your competitors, or your industry. So it basically lets you know that you should kind of strike while the iron's hot and go after them.
Okay. So what are the big issues right now you see when it comes towards sales rep finding himself with objections? Well, we'll go back to you. Let's talk about your BDR team right now. You obviously have a team that you oversee. When it comes towards objection, what's some of the biggest issues that they're facing or they have faced that you guys have been able to overcome? But what are some of the biggest objections? And we can talk about how intent has helped you guys with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. So I think across all fronts, regardless of whether or not you're marketing, IT, HR, whatever it is, everyone's facing that budget objection. One of the most common objections to the phone, through email, whatever it may be. And a lot of that stems from the fact that, COVID has kind of run rampant and kind of made organizations kind of shift their priorities and strategies. So for our team, we have a really strong ability using our own product, first and foremost, to know how interested someone is in having a conversation with us. And we use that to inform whether or not we should be reaching out to that company or not. So it doesn't always make sense to, if you kind of look at it, if you think about it this way, like the objection of budget would not come from a company that is showing intent in your solution. Because if they're doing this back-end research, trying to figure out whether or not your company can help solve their problems, it's not necessarily something that you'll see very frequently. So for us, we focus on, first and foremost, the accounts that are showing those levels of intent that they want to have a conversation with us, knowing that because these are companies that are demonstrating like data or I guess even actions of our previous customers, that they wouldn't be doing so unless it was worth our time to reach out to them.
So how do you, and so you're looking for some of those cues, so to speak, before they even raise their hand, yet you're understanding those cues that they're having, and that's helping you and your team overcome these objections before they even become objections because they're not even there.
100%. So think about it this way. If someone was searching for some of our key competitors, they're searching for certain words around our product, then we know kind of based upon our own battle cards and what our competitors do, we have a pretty good understanding of like, if we do reach out to these people, and obviously because they're doing this research, they probably do have some kind of budget. This is what they've already kind of gathered and what their overall understanding of is of the marketplace and kind of how we can help. So when we reach out to them, we're a lot more valuable. One thing that we've kind of adopted here is kind of like a more of a play on words, but also very relevant to our given spaces, especially with intent. Yeah. Is traditionally people use what we call battle cards. Battle cards are like your competitors and kind of how you differentiate them. We have this thing that we call value cards. And value cards essentially, and everyone kind of has this because we all have different levels of intent, but not everyone has this kind of built out. But we know that based on certain keywords, what does it mean that you can see with an intent, right? So what does it mean for our main personas if they are showing intent based upon those keywords? So then when our team looks and sees this intent, like how can I use that information for, a head of marketing, a CRO, a sales person, et cetera? Because if they're doing that kind of research and this is the kind of business problem that they're trying to solve, so when I communicate to them, that's how I can provide value to them.
So is the solution then make sure I can understand if I have my team and we're trying to go after, let's just make up an industry, say the nursing home space, and we're trying to help get in touch with the chief growth officers at that organizations like that. Do I put these criteria in the solution? The solution then find companies that visit my website or companies that are use data points and just see what those companies are doing and then spits out, Donald, out of the 100, go for these 50. Am I off?
100%. So to your point, it's if those companies are searching for whatever your product you're selling to in the nursing space, and you have these keywords as well as even looking at your website of where they're going on based upon that, then you should prioritize reaching out to those accounts because they wouldn't be doing that kind of research unless there was some kind of project internally that they're focusing on and your solution could potentially be a fit for it.
I've seen solutions like this, and one of the things, well, not exactly, because I've not seen exactly your solution, but I'm sure you'll probably give me some more details. That's cool stuff. But one of the things that I've seen is that it doesn't matter based on the size of the demographic or the organization that you're going for, if you can gather intent on that.
Sure. So, I mean, it's always important to kind of keep in mind your ICP, right?
Mhm.
But I will say we've noticed that there have been companies that maybe weren't in our CRM, but because we saw this information on the back end, we then added them to our CRM and they actually closed business for them. So
Interesting.
it is important to at least know kind of like what companies you should be selling to in general. But the good thing about like some kind of intent solutions, or I guess even account-based solutions, is they have the ability to kind of surface this data from companies that you aren't even really aware of. But as long as they kind of fit into your ICP, you should go after them.
Okay, sweet. What else? What are some other things that we should know about, especially as a sales rep, when it comes towards recognizing intent, and how can these continue to help me? We talked about how, first off, it's going to help you prevent, when it comes to objection, you're going to know who to go after in the first place. But what are some other benefits of understanding that buyer intent prior towards getting those objections?
Sure. So a really important thing to kind of think about is regardless of whether or not you have some kind of intent solution, there are a lot of kind of things here and there that provide some kind of information on what companies are researching and kind of what portions of the website they've gone to. But it's important to know that like fundamentally buyers have changed,
Hmm.
and everyone kind of knows this by now in terms of like they're doing their own research or kind of poking around. And similar to traditional, you know, theories or methodologies around like inbound response time, where if you see someone does a demo request or contacts us, then you typically have about 5 minutes to respond. Otherwise, the opportunity of converting into a meeting drops off by like 80%. That exact same thing is happening right now in the intent space. Like if you have the ability, like regardless of whether or not you have the technology, people are researching your solution,
Yeah.
right? So it's important to know that if you do have the ability to see this kind of intent, the sooner you can target these accounts, the better, because you always want to strike while the iron is hot, similar to an inbound or similar to a contact us. Because, you know, if someone is doing this research and you like forget about them or choose not to respond to them within like a week or two, the odds of that person or that company still being interested in your solution significantly drop off. So it's just important to remember that like we all kind of have an ingrained in us, whether that's from like marketing or from sales or whoever your organization is kind of like pushing this inbound response time. But we all have it ingrained to us that like you have to respond as quickly as possible. And the exact same thing comes from intent. Like whether or not you can see it, it's happening. So if you do have the ability to see it, just know that you don't want to wait, because if you wait, the odds of them still taking you seriously and still wanting to evaluate your solution or not going to one of your competitors significantly drops off. So I guess like a huge best practice. If you do have some kind of intent solution, the sooner that you can kind of respond to them and reach out to them, the better, because it'll help drive more conversions.
Oh man, so darn true. And it's crazy about the 5 minute window too, right? Because I recognize it with myself when I'm working, prospecting for, or me hunting down a solution, and I'm doing my little research. We all do that. You find that if somebody is helpful or connecting with me quickly, then they answer my question. Yeah, you grab my attention. As opposed to if you're not responding to me, clearly shows that you don't necessarily care. If I sent an inquiry and you're going to wait for 24 hours, 2 days before I can get something. I'm trying to figure out this stuff right now. I'm looking at 4 companies. Why you? So,
And that's what it all comes down to. And that's like, in my opinion, one of the strongest things to think about with intent, because if they're doing that kind of research, if they're showing all that intent, like it means something's happening in the organization, whether the
yeah.
problem is solved that day or 2 weeks or whatever it may be. But you want to be the first person they talk to as they're trying to solve that problem. So if you wait, then obviously your chances of converting that to an opportunity significantly decrease.
What are some of the what are some of the top signals that you guys see with the solution? I'm sure you collect a bunch of data. Is it like, obviously research, looking at somebody's website, but are there any other top intent signals that you guys have, or that you recommend, even if somebody's not using a solution, that they can look towards for potential purchase?
Sure. So I think a really easy one, and I think makes sense to a lot of people, especially if you're in a competitive space, is at the very least looking to see if they're searching for your competitors, especially in those kind of industries where they have those long, drawn-out sales cycles and the deals are typically anywhere from 3 to 5 years. If you could be the first person in, then I'd highly encourage you to key in that, especially because most organizations already have their battle cards built out, or at least some kind of knowledge around how to kind of contact someone if they're interested in competitors. So that's the easiest. Now, the second thing in terms of product keywords or like industry words, I just always recommend people to kind of focus in on the keywords related to their product, just because that's usually the cleanest line to converting them. Because if they're searching for, if say you're in the contact acquisition space, if I'm looking for a contact provider, a data provider, and you're seeing that as opposed to just like pipeline generation.
Yeah.
Contact data provider is a little bit stronger than just pipeline generation. So focusing on like kind of how it ties into your product is probably more effective.
Do you find that there's a if I don't have a solution, an intent solution, how can I figure stuff like that out? Do I any other means where I can go about doing that, or is that try to do my Google Analytics?
Yeah, I mean, there are things you can do. So I think like the back end way to like try and build some kind of intent is if you're using a sales engagement tool like a sales auth or an outreach, at least just tracking your clicks, because if they're going on your website, then you want to make sure you're prioritizing those people. I will say it is becoming a lot more commonplace to need some kind of solution just because like it's happening in the back end, and there are a lot of different, like if people are trying to get started, there are a lot of different solutions out there. I feel pretty confident about what we provide here at 6 Cents because it's, full suite. But it is an important thing to have because if you are looking for that, especially with right now, if you are looking for a better way to gauge how interested someone is, as opposed to like spending all this time reaching out to someone and hoping they want to talk to you, but finding out they don't have budget, following the breadcrumbs around their intent is probably the strongest thing you should focus on.
Yeah. I think it's the idea of your people love to buy, they hate to be sold. Gitomer always talks about that, and you're focused on the people who are loving to buy right now. And I always find that I want to work smarter, not harder, right? If I don't want to go and if you're going to shoot in the dark at try to give me a list of those 200 people, or give me a list of 50 people who have some kind of intent, I'll take that 50 over any day. And that in that case, the quality is way better than the quantity. And I think many of us in sales, we still have that old school mentality of let me, you got some leads for me? Well, they're not necessarily leads. They're just people who could be, it's more like here's some ICPs, some ideal customer profiles. Leads are people who are ready to buy. So anyways, I have a couple.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're going to say something towards that?
No, and that's exactly what it comes down to. People forget that one of the most common things people will say is time and money. Time is money in sales, right? And the efficiency is the most important thing. And it doesn't make sense to go after everyone when you can focus on the ones who actually want to talk to you, because your chances of converting them are much higher if you focus on them as opposed to the entire group of people.
You transitioned here for a little bit because I feel a lot of this stuff probably come from your experience with playing professional football, where you have this mentality of performance. When it comes to, you're a big fan of mastering your craft. I've heard you talk about that on other podcasts as well. So why don't you talk to us about that a little bit, about mastering your craft?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, I was always focused on getting better. But once I became a professional athlete, then I started watching like future Hall of Famers and seeing how they did it. They were just perfectionists at the one or two things they did better than everyone else. And once I started realizing that, in particular in Minnesota, I got the opportunity to play with an awesome defensive end named Jared Allen, who's going to be probably a Hall of Famer one day. But every single day, and this is a guy who was making well over $100 million. I think it was like a $72 million contract. This is someone who did not have to be working as hard as he did, because he already had his money in the bank. But every single day without fail, it didn't matter if he had a 4-sack game or a 0-sack game, every single day at practice, he was perfecting his craft. With one or two moves that he beat all of his offensive linemen with, he was always perfecting those. So that taught me that, one, you have to be extremely self-aware of the things that you're really good at. Two, you're going to have to but even before you get there, you're going to have to watch people and learn their craft and kind of figure out how things are done. But then once you kind of get a sense of what you're good at, just work it to death and don't let anyone beat you at it. And I can think about my strengths as, when I was a BDR or an AE, but as a BDR, my process was my thing. I'm the kind of person where if you tell me what to do, I will not deviate from it. I'll stick to the exact same process, do it day in, day out without fail. Now, some people don't have the ability to kind of stay that disciplined, but it's my strength and I do it really well. So knowing that, I basically create a process around how many calls, emails, social touches, even handwritten letters, and even when I would attack accounts, and I kind of just executed that month over month, and I always looked back to see how I performed. So I knew that as long as I could create a process and stick to it, I had a rhyme and reason behind why I was doing things and just kind of marched towards it, then you couldn't beat me. And one thing that was super cool that I saw was when I was a BDR, I would write 15 handwritten letters to my prospects, because I knew that every single time I wrote a handwritten letter, after sending them on Thursday, getting the responses. I'd get an average of a 33% response rate. So I knew that every single month between, 60 people or 60 people, I would always get a 33% response rate. And just baked into my process, I knew that I could get meetings out of that. But that was my thing. And I just was always trying to find a way to make that process better because I knew based upon those numbers and metrics and how I can be successful.
See, there's money. They're calling me. Your prospect's calling right now, right? You guys heard that there. No, yeah. But I love that. Love the concept behind it because I think it also ties very closely with the idea of the intent, right? If I can understand my competitor's intent, or before I go into a game, what's going to happen, if I could watch the film and know the details, it's just really the same idea. And if we could do that, if we do the same thing in football and we're mastering our craft, don't just come into your sales role and just pick up the phone or just jump into Salesforce and just bang out and call people. You want to make sure you focus on people who are right, people who have the best chances and the best opportunities right now that you can help and solve their problems with.
Exactly.
You become I want you to, one last thing as we wrap up here. You, with the idea of practicing, right? Because you form habits that you can help. What habits did you learn from being a professional athlete that you have applied to sales, or that a sales rep listening to this can help, habits that they can apply that can help them with also overcoming these objections when it comes towards working with buyers? Yeah.
Definitely. This goes back to, again, mastering your craft. I knew I was good on the phone. I also knew that when I was in AE, I wanted to have like a really good first strong impression. So it was a little bit more difficult when I became an AE because like my calendar was kind of a little different every day. But whenever I had the opportunity, every single morning, I would practice my first call pitch before anything else and listen back to it at the end of the week to see what I was doing right or wrong. So the main principle around just constant repetitive practice, role playing, having the familiarity of what you're doing right or wrong, and just kind of own yourself and keep yourself honest with it. I always made the best practice for myself.
Well, dude, love it, man. If there's one major piece of advice you'd like for people listening to this episode, out of everything you shared, if there's one major piece you want them to walk away with that's going to help them to recognize intent and overcome those objections, what's that major piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is knowing yourself and knowing how you could win, and especially with intent. Like if you have the ability to see that a company is researching certain keywords, looking at your competitors, whatever it may be, like the process that you build around how you're going to attack them based upon your strengths should always guide you. So I think a lot of it just comes down to self-awareness in general with yourself and kind of figuring out the best way to utilize that.
You're picking your first round pick in your fantasy football lineup. Who you going with?
Well, Clemson has a pretty good quarterback who I think you can build a franchise on. So I'll definitely go with Trevor.
All right, there we go. You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Going for a quarterback, first round pick. Ernest.
I should say defensive end. Just not played, but I'll say quarterback.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Boom. All right. So can you give me 2 more minutes? Is that okay?
Sure. And sorry, did you hear the noise in the background? I think my neighbor is doing construction or something.
I can't hear a thing.
Okay, perfect. Cool.
Your mics are good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a free giveaway at the end with, they can download this, but I would say, or maybe if there are, 5 or tips that you give to your to your BDRs that you would give to someone, things that we didn't mention in the show today, or maybe just, 3 to 5 challenges that your BDRs typically have, and just give a quick tip around that. Is that okay? And I'll get this.
I can do that.
Yeah. So you can just rapid fire and just give those.
Okay, sure. Oh, just right now, or?
Yeah. Is that okay? Could you?
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. Let's think. So 3 to 5 tips that I could give, or
that you typically give to your BDRs that help them.
Okay. Let's see. Give me a second to think really quickly. The main ones I'd give. Yeah, I'd say first and foremost, any kind of tip I give you is always set goals. Like have a reason why you're going to attack your number and know exactly what it's going to take for you to get there. 2, as I mentioned, perfecting your craft. Know what's the one channel or messaging or thing within your process that you're better at than everyone else, and just always get better at it. It's not enough to just kind of sit there and know that this is how you're going to hit your number, but like, what I'm going to do day in. BDRs are people that know how to pull all resources, whether it's working through AE, it's trying to have people do ghost notes for you, it's going through social. The people that we call, like, I guess, fanatical prospectors, the ones who can kind of pull all resources from all avenues consistently, they always tend to do pretty well. So just being aware and not being confined into like traditional prospecting channels, and just try and find any single way possible to get the meeting.
Sweet. Well, we'll take those and we'll go to have them get that as an extra bonus. So appreciate you coming on the show.
Awesome.
Thanks, man. That was our good friend Ernest, and if you want to connect with him, if you're watching this on YouTube, on TSE TV, I ask you to just go ahead and click down below. You'll see some of the links. You can get back and connect with Ernest. He's very active on LinkedIn, awesome guy, and he'll be very personable too. Someone you could talk to is not going to ignore you. And the cool thing about Ernest too, again, you could pick his brain for some fantasy football picks. He did give us a little bit of bonus content, a little bit more ideas, a couple more things that he's recognized as a senior director of business development. And he gave us those tips, and I want you to have them as a bonus content. You can go to our website and download that. Just go to the salesevangelist.com/the word episode number 1350. Is that right? Man, yeah, we produce a lot of episodes. That's the salesevangelist.com/the word episode number 1350. You can get access to that download. He gives us three other pieces of tips that you can use to help you also in your sales efforts right now. Things that he's learning and seeing as a senior director of business development. As always, we share stuff like this because we want to help you. We want you to succeed. We want you to find more of those ideal customers. We want you to know what to say when you actually reach out to them. We want you to be able to take advantage of offers. And our friends over at Pipedrive are giving you an amazing offer. They're giving you an extension. Typically, they give a 14-day trial, but they want to help you to turn those conversations that you're having into actually customers. They want you to be able to succeed in your role. And if after you finish that trial and you fall in love with Pipedrive, they're giving you an extra benefit. They're giving you 25% off the first 3 months. You can't beat that. Click on the link below, get a chance to check out Pipedrive and all the cool stuff they're doing. Most importantly, we want you to close more deals, and I want to challenge you each and every single day to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.